Hello and welcome to the English Like a Native podcast with me, Anna. This is a listening resource for intermediate to advanced level English learners. Now, you live in an English-speaking country, but are you actually getting better at English? Many learners assume that just being surrounded by English will magically lead to fluency. But it doesn't work that way. In today's episode, we're diving into why passive exposure isn't enough and what you can do to actively improve. Currently, we have some building work going on in our home, and our main builder, he does a lot. He is a jack of all trades. He's very good at doing lots of different things, but he doesn't tile. So he had to bring in a friend of his to do the tiling. Now, one of the problems that we encountered with the tiler is that he doesn't really speak very much English. He can get by, but he can't talk in detail about the project or about the job, which meant that every time the tiler was here at the house, my main builder had to be here as well to be the translator and to be able to ask questions and translate and help with any communication. And I asked how long his friend had been in this country, and it turns out that his friend has been here for 5 years, living and working in the UK, and yet he can't do a job without a translator present. And I thought, isn't that amazing that you can live in this country for 5 years and still not be able to work independently despite being immersed in the language, right? And many people think that just being in this country will help them to absorb the language. Well, it doesn't work that way. You have to have an element of active learning. It can't all be done through passive. Now, this tiler is not the only example that I've come across. Many of the students that come into my Fluency program or come into my community tell me that they've lived in the UK for years, and the reason they decided to start actively learning is because they feel isolated in this country, because they haven't managed to break down that language barrier. Before moving here, many of them thought, if I live in the UK for long enough, my English will improve. And they are gravely disappointed when that doesn't happen. Now, the reality is language learning requires active engagement. So passive learning, it does have value. It's important to have lots and lots of input. But if you have no output or not enough output, then you're going to plateau. Plateau is a great word. It means getting stuck at a certain level, unable to progress any further. And many learners plateau when they find that they can function. When they have enough language to function, or when they found ways around things. So if you live with someone with a higher level of English, or you have a child that you brought to this country who is actively using the language, sometimes it's easier to rely on those people to do your communicating for you. So if you need to connect with the council, or talk to teachers, or go to the supermarket and dispute some bad quality product that you bought last week that now is not working, anything that requires communication, it can be easier to lean on someone else to do that for you to avoid having to communicate. And then you also have the social bubble trap, which is where you stick with people in the country you're living in that speak your native language. And you find this here. There are communities and pockets of people from all over the world that just find each other. And it's wonderful to find that support network and to feel like you belong when you're in a new country. But it's not going to help your English if you are avoiding using the language in your functional day-to-day activities, and then you're socializing in your own language, there's never a point where you're stepping outside of your comfort zone, and that's what keeps you stuck. And that's why you would struggle with fluency. Now, I understand, I know why it happens. It's that fear of making mistakes. It's the fear of not understanding. If you put yourself out there and then someone says something to you that you don't understand, then there's that social awkwardness, that anxiety of what now? You don't want to look silly. You don't want to have that kind of experience. And I understand that. But what's worse than those awkward moments is staying stuck and isolated endlessly. Sometimes short-term pain equals long-term gain. If you focus on the right things, short-term pain, the pain of discomfort, of embarrassment, of making mistakes, will lead to growth and progress, and in the long term, you will gain fluency. So what can you do if you're stuck in this particular situation that I'm talking about? Well, you need to focus on the immersion with intention strategy. If you are in the UK, you're already immersing yourself in the language, but you've got to do it with intention. So building small daily habits to force yourself to engage with the language. That might be actually picking up the phone and making the phone call yourself instead of asking your partner or your children or your friend to make the phone call for you. It might be joining in some sort of club or social activity which requires you to connect. If you're not ready to do it in real life, then you know that there are options online. I have my conversation club, which is a safe space of learners where you can have regular conversations about all sorts of topics to build your confidence in speaking. And when you're ready, then you have to try to have regular conversations with native speakers in your real world. And then asking follow-up questions, not just going with the basics, the default language that you already know because you've learned how to function. Add more. Ask follow-up questions. If someone says, "Hi, good morning, how are you?" and you know that question and you know the answer is, "Good, thank you, how are you?" And they say, "Good, thank you." And then that's it. That's your interaction. If that's what you normally always do, try asking something additional. So you do your little hello, how are you? I'm good. Then you could say, "Are you doing anything nice this weekend?" Or, "Did you see that fantastic javelin throw in the Olympics?" I don't know, some pop culture reference. Or, "Are you going to the carnival this weekend? I know there's a carnival coming to town. Will you be attending?" Or you might say, "How are things at work?" So there are so many ways that you can build on these small interactions. If fear of making mistakes is one of the things that holds you back, then maybe you could ask some of your closest friends to help to correct your mistakes so that they don't become habits. Because feedback is very, very powerful. It's something that I've been passionate about weaving into our fluency program so that students, they have all the resources that they need to progress, but what they really, really love is the feedback and the interaction, because that's where they see the most progress. And that's what I want for you too. So I'm going to wrap this up. I just want you to remember that living in the UK alone won't improve your English unless you make it happen. Living in an English-speaking country is a fantastic opportunity for progressing to fluency, but it doesn't happen to you. You have to go out and get it. Now, before I end this episode, I want you to think of one way, one strategy that you can take on to start using English in a more active way. Just one little thing that you can do on a regular basis to start making a step towards improving your English. Now, remember, I am here for you. should you need me. I have the Conversation Club ready and waiting to help you explode out of your comfort zone. And I also have the Fluency program if you are deeply serious about achieving fluency in English. Then I have a guided program that can help you all the way there. If you want to learn more, I do have a masterclass that describes the fluency strategy that we use and gives you some hints and tips to give you an idea of how to do it yourself, should you want to do it yourself. So that masterclass is available for free. I'll leave a link to that in the show notes. And remember, you get out of life what you put in. So if you want to achieve it, you absolutely can. I believe in you. Now go out there and use English in some small way or form. I hope you have a wonderful day. Until next time, take very good care and goodbye.